You had me until we got to the animal sounds.
Welcome to Data Breakthroughs, the podcast where every episode starts with a mystery. My guest and I walk in blind. No clue what the problem is, no idea about the industry, and definitely not here to spend an hour debating tech stack. Instead, we unwrap a real problem from a real person, figure out what's actually going on, vanish for 15 minutes to think on our own, and then return to see if we can crack it. It is part detective story, part improv challenge, and part let's see what breaks. No scripts, no preps, just curiosity, creativity, and a dash of chaos. Today, my partner in problem solving is the wonderful Nick. I'm so happy to have you here today. How's it going?
Hello. Good morning. Going well. It's hot, but otherwise good. How are you?
Where are you? Good. Where are you located today?
Today in Athens. That answer changes week on week these days, but in Athens at the moment.
Maybe you can give a little bit more details for our listeners.
Yeah, so depending on the day, most days I'm a data product manager, and that's what I've been doing for most of my career in one way or another. A lot of the time it's been a little bit more indirect, like I started in startups, then in consulting, but it was always in data, and I was always the person that was more in between tech and business than strictly on one or the other sides. And actually for the last 6 to 12 months, I've gone from being a hands-on data product manager to starting my own business where I train data teams how to think like data PMs.
It's nice. We are going to solve the problem that we both not aware what it is. And there are 3 icebreaker questions that I will like to start with. The first one is, if your data could be turned into a dish, would it be fancy Michelin meal, a street food snack, or something your grandma makes best?
Definitely not Michelin star meal. None of this over-engineered, trying to perfect and impress ourselves more than the client. At least that's my bias against fine dining. And then street food snack or something my grandma would make. I'm gonna go with street food snack because it's cheap, it's easy to make, you don't need a big setup, but also it's not what's been going on for the last 80 years. There's room for innovation, there's room for trying new things. Yeah, I'm gonna lock it. We're gonna go for taco truck.
Cool. Next question I have for you is, if you had to explain your job to a 5-year-old using only animal sounds, which animal would you pick?
You had me until we got to the animal sounds.
You can make the sounds if you want.
Let me think. We're trying to go in the right direction, not the wrong one. I feel like some sort of ape would maybe give enough vocal range to try to express the concepts. I'm not going to try and reproduce, apes together strong, but make it data products. But yeah, lock it in with ape. Does the ape need to go to the taco truck, or are the two separate?
I think they're going together at the end of the day. He's on top of the truck making the noise.
Love it.
The last
What's the third
question
one?
that we have for you.
Damn.
You get 1 free upgrade. Excel never crashes again, or email always answers themselves. Which one do you pick?
Email. Like, these days, even the most complicated Excel model I'll make, which it'll be on Google Sheets anyway, not really crashing anymore. So, I don't know, it feels almost like I'm cheating. Heavier workloads either get done with code or usually get done by someone else. So it's not my problem that Excel is crashing.
Lately I realized that I'm using less and less Excel. I think that really, really rare tasks I'm using spreadsheets for this. And I see more and more myself using basically JSONs because it's easier than to upload to LLM models for them to analyze a bit and give you answers. I will go also with the email because I think this is still a big blocker on me. I think I have around 200 unread emails still waiting in my mailbox, which drive me crazy.
Oh yeah, one day I'll hit inbox 0, but that day is not coming soon.
Thank you for the warm
All
up.
right.
And let's maybe introduce yourself a bit. What are you doing? What is we started already discussing a bit your profession during the icebreaker.
So actually these days, going back to the question about is my data grandma's dish or a food truck, actually I don't have a data product other than my own, Google Sheets for my own planning. But yeah, that's kind of what I do. I really like it. If anything, I like it too much because I spend a lot of my free time doing things like running meetups and writing articles and joining calls like these and kind of chatting about all the fun aspects of the non-technical side of doing data work.
I think that we are missing quite a lot when we not doing data products. And I think this is one of the biggest costs of data teams today. And it's becoming a hotter topic after we achieved finally the data quality, the data governance, all of them functioning perfectly fine. Now we go into the data product. And actually, I had a discussion last week with a data product owner. And one of the things that they said from their perspective was, and this is the amazing part, that finally there is a space for the governance, there is space for the quality inside the product, because now we're talking about the quality of the product going to its customer rather than we do governance because we need to, because everybody are doing it, or we're doing data quality because everybody complaining about the quality of the data. But now there is a little bit more of a strategic thinking behind it as well, of why we actually doing this data product and why do we need to have now governance and why do we need to have the data quality. Do you see the same thing in your area?
Yeah, I mean, depending on the organization, sometimes the progression is as you kind of described, that, first we hired data scientists, then we realized actually we needed to get some data engineers, then we got the data engineers so the data scientists don't have to build the pipelines themselves because that's not their expertise. But we found out there's source data quality issues, so we needed to invest in stewardship or governance. And then we finally realized that all these people, these very expensive people, are still building things that are not adding value to the business. That's kind of one path towards data product management. And then there's other places that, because maybe from the start, the data people were hired by commercial leaders, they were very commercially oriented. When I describe to them what I do, they kind of just nod along and they go, is that even a problem? Not to mention that, there's companies that have been building customer-facing data products for 20, 30, 40 years. They're a whole different ballgame of their own. But I think most people fall into that first bucket. Technical leaders, hiring technical people, obsessing over technical things like the tools that we're going to use and the technology, and then eventually get challenged by leadership of like, okay, but what's the return you're bringing to the business? And then they either put their hands up, jump ship, go to their next job to build a new data platform and repeat the cycle. Or some of them actually realize, okay, no, we need to finally figure this out. That's kind of why I quit my job, to help those kinds of people, if that makes sense.
Are you ready
Problem time.
To see the problem space that we're going to work with today?
Yeah, I'm excited.
Let me reveal it. Okay, the key question. Hi, I'm Maya. Not me, but the one who wrote it. What is the main problem we are addressing? What Maya was writing is our high accuracy churn prediction ML model exists but remains trapped in data science notebooks, making it impossible for my sales team to act on predictions and prevent customer churn. Why is it important to solve? Without actionable deployment, our entire ML investment delivers zero business value while customers' churn continues unchecked, threatening my renewal target and my team's credibility. Are you comfortable with this?
Oh, I love it. I love churn prediction.
And Maya added some more details into it. So the situation, my sales team was promised daily at-risk customer alerts integrated into Salesforce to help us prioritize retention calls. Our data science team delivered an impressive presentation showing their model could predict churn 60 days in advance with 87% accuracy. Respect. The trigger for the issue that she's seeing right now, or to the problem, we lost a major client last month. One of the models had flagged as high risk 6 weeks earlier, but my team never saw the alert because there was no systemic way to get the prediction from Jupyter notebooks to our sales workflow. Tech stack. There is basically Python, ML model in Jupyter notebooks, Salesforce CRM, regular stack, AWS infrastructure, and my sales team work exclusively in Salesforce. This is an important part, I would say, because it means that everything is in Salesforce. Otherwise, we're risking an issue. This, I think, what's causing the issue. Then tension. My renewal rate targets haven't improved despite the AI investment. My sales reps feel like they are flying blind without the promised insights, and I am getting pressure from our CEO about why the expensive data science team isn't helping sales performance. There are boundaries. The model itself works well, 87 accuracy, and our data scientist is capable. This isn't about model accuracy or hiring more people. Our Salesforce instance can't be replaced. My team needs to stay in the primary workflow. Budget exists for reasonable deployment solution. It's a lot to take. What do we have here? We have basically a ML model that's supposed to predict churn, proved itself. So we have here a proof of concept, high risk, 6 weeks earlier, just didn't interact with the Salesforce. There is the Salesforce system, and we are basically trying to understand now how can we move from Jupyter notebooks to a full deployment, I would say, and then presenting the value of it. Do you agree on this?
Yes. I guess I've got a question which maybe for the purpose of the exercise we're not going to get an answer to, which is a little bit around the scale. Like, are we talking about a huge sales team? Is it a small one? And the reason why I ask is because in my head I'm already like, look, you want it integrated directly into Salesforce, and maybe that's not going to be too much work, or maybe it will be painful to do. Can I just start emailing, sales team leaders and Excel sheets once a week for now, so they can start getting value today? But here, I'm partly jumping into the solution, but it's more because I want to understand this is what I would ask if this was a real client and I was trying to go in and get a feel for it. Because a lot of the time, the things the stakeholder writes as constraints, some things are real constraints. You can't get around it. Like, we're not going to have an answer that's like, oh, just teach the salespeople some Python and they can play with it themselves. No, not going to happen. Whereas something like, look, 100% of your workflows in Salesforce, is that true? Do you sometimes open your email? Do you sometimes go on Slack or Teams? That kind of thing is what I would kind of poke holes at to understand. The other open question I have...
We can make an assumption and decide what we're going for.
And then if I go back to the sort of problem space, I'd also want to challenge just how confident are we that this model is exactly what's needed. Like, I would ask, for example, hey, what is your current process? If you think a customer is going to churn, do you have a playbook that, once you've identified the churn risk customer, actually you've got a playbook, you give them a strategic discount, you give them some freebies, you, prioritize their requests, whatever that might be. And actually, when you apply that playbook 9 times out of 10, or even 5 times out of 10, the customer doesn't churn. Yeah, I want to work that out to also understand, hey, is a 6-week time frame good enough? Or actually, by then, is it too little, too late? Again, these aren't I wouldn't try to completely break the current machine learning model, since we're talking about productionizing it here and integrating it in Salesforce, not building a new model. But I wouldn't want to finish this whole process and we realize, yep, it's now integrated into Salesforce, the sales reps get all the alerts, but actually they can't do anything with it because it hadn't been thought through fully. It just sounded good. We can get warning of churning customers. Like, maybe the problem isn't even to do with what the sales team is doing, it's to do with the fact that we just have a worse product. We're losing market share continuously to competitors. It's not the sales team that's going to make a difference, but it's our pricing, it's our features, it's whatever.
I think this is more towards the solution part, which we can actually edit as even a test and see what happens. And we can make an assumption and saying they do open emails, they do open Slack, which will help us with this a bit. I don't believe...
Yeah, so in my mind, it's just getting a picture of the context of the organization we're talking about. I have some solutions, as you can tell, in mind, but I'm not jumping ahead to push for those solutions. It's more, what are those clarifications we want to get before we start thinking about what we want to come back and discuss and propose.
Unfortunately, we don't have any more details from Maya, from what I can see. This is what we need to work with. That's the beauty about it. So,
yeah,
this challenge. So we can make as many assumptions as we need. We can add as many open questions and points. I already add 2 questions in here. What the size of the sales team? And then, do you have a playbook to act on the model? So we can also evaluate this one. This is, I think, 2 key important components when we're going forward. Would you like to try to create a clarity statement maybe? So we define our problems that we're going to deal with. So what are we actually solving in here?
I'm trying to decide kind of what altitude to approach the problem definition from. On a very tactical level, it's that the sales team is not getting churn predictions directly into Salesforce.
And think about
it. So they can't act on it.
By time, right? So we have 90 days to execute whatever we're going to draft in here.
How can we enable our sales team to see which customers are at risk of churning so that they can act on it. Here, potentially, thank you. Maybe we need to call out more explicitly that it's also enable them to do that within their existing workflow. I love how it's capitalizing the new words I add.
And
yes, I'm using my iPad as my second screen, and it's terrible for resizing boxes.
And anything else we should add in here in the assumption or clarity? Are we approaching it from technical perspective, from product perspective?
So for me, if I think about the problem, it's twofold. The first part, and for me it's the easy part, even if technically there's challenges to it, is, okay, we just need to find a way to have the models run continuously, pass the answer, use the Salesforce API to create either a view or add it as a tag for the sales team to act on. Some way of passing on this information. And then the other part, which is the bit that a lot of data scientists, science teams don't think about and then complain that no one is using their tool, is also the adoption part, right? So if I were to snap my fingers today and bam, it's in Salesforce, does the sales team know how to use this information, right? And so that's partly about what I asked earlier of like, is there a playbook? And it's partly just about workflow design. Like, what is that? What does that workflow look like? Is this field going to be hidden somewhere that you need to click into each customer to see the tag? Or can we create a custom view that shows you only your high-risk customers, the ones that are assigned to you? So that's the other bit that's missing from here. And it might be our team that has to build, the custom Salesforce view. It might be that we need to work together with whoever is building things in Salesforce in the business. And that's why, in a way, my clarity statement was a bit vague. Because it's like, oh, how can we enable the sales team to do this? It's not, oh, how can we build the integration with Salesforce? Because I want to make sure we're considering both the plumbing part, the bringing information into their view, and then the squishier part of, okay, but how is this going to work for their team? Is it the manager that needs to have it to assign priority cases maybe to their best sales reps? Is it each sales rep that kind of self-serves and sees, okay, if I've got my list of 20 customers, which one should I prioritize dealing with? Maybe it's not even that, the normal sales team that needs to deal with it. We need to have a separate team that deals with, we should give these guys a special deal, or we should change the account manager. Like, the other thought I have in my head, but it's a bit off scope, is also, do we understand, in terms of the features that make someone more likely to churn, could that point to a systematic error or flaw in our part? That maybe if you've got Bob as your account manager, you're highly likely to churn because Bob sucks at his job. There, it's not about bringing the information into Salesforce, it's also about doing something about Bob. Yeah. But that's a bit off topic. It's the kind of thing I'd want to mention to Maya at some point,
Then what we're going to do now is we're going to turn off the cameras. 15 minutes, each of us has time to brainstorm how they approaching the possible solution of this problem space. Action points, anything that you find relevant. And we see each other in 15 minutes.
Awesome. See you in 15.
See you. Hey, Nick, we are back.
Good to be back. It was fun. Like I said, I'm not as hands-on, or I haven't been for the last few months, so it's fun to get back into it.
Do you feel the 15 minutes were enough, or should we have done a little bit more?
I think they were definitely good enough to get started. I haven't produced a full project plan and solution design, but I wouldn't want to do that on my own anyway.
What we're going to do now, each of us getting 3 minutes to present the ideas and the brainstorming space. I will follow you with my mouse. Feel free to lead the way.
Yep. Starting with the brainstorm area, a couple of things that I've written down. If I start with the top right corner, I've got some concerns listed out that I'd want to understand. The left column is the more tactical stuff, like, hey, if we want to integrate with Salesforce, is there a team that's kind of the gatekeeper that we need to slot into their roadmap? Like, I've done projects where we had to integrate with Salesforce before, and even though the integration we had to do was simple, we were several weeks delayed because they were busy with other stuff. And so by just understanding that early on, you can figure out things like, hey, can we just throw money at that problem? Can we escalate? We don't want to realize that we can't integrate as easily as we thought on day 50, because then we're going to be running behind, and we'll probably have to redo part of the solution design. Then the other tactical kind of concern is, do we have the skills, right? So if we want to be running the model continuously, also do things like drift detection, because yes, it's 87% accurate right now. Will it continue to be 87% accurate? What if something breaks? What if there's a problem with the upstream data? Do we have people that know how to fix these things? Ideally make it so that it fixes itself, call out alerts, all those things. We might need to borrow some engineers, we might need to hire some outside help, and so on. And then on the more strategic side, this may be getting into a lot of the detail, but what is the cost of intervention? So if we're going to give, let's say, a 20% discount to try and prevent churn, is that worth it in every case? Do we need to add a step to the solution, either in version 1 or later on, to say, hey, if the customer lifetime value is less than the value of the discount that we might give, maybe we don't bother. Maybe we let, for example, our bad customers churn. Anyway, that's the kind of concerns that have informed what I've written. Then I had one quick win, which is what I asked earlier. Can we send the Excel sheet to people today and get them started today? Not lose another client by the time we've put together the project team, but also to test the sort of workflow. And I want to do one test, ideally, if possible, with that pre-Salesforce integration approach, but then also one later, because I'm partly wondering, how are we going to measure success? And how are we going to measure success compared to the do-nothing approach? Because it might be that naturally the business, our churn rate is going to grow over time. We want to have some way potentially of comparing. But also, because I'm thinking about all the rollout issues and adoption, how do I get a small number of sales reps to actually test this out for us to iron out any issues before we roll it out to everyone and everyone starts complaining? Is that my time, or have you given me an extra minute?
I gave you an extra minute.
All right. Thank you. Yes, and this is a question, by the way, that we can't decide for ourselves, right? It has to be done with the business. I've had times where I was told, look, we cannot do anything like an A/B test. You're going to have salespeople complaining that there's, discrimination because some people are getting the better model, whatever. And other times where actually that was great because it meant that the skeptics could actually see their colleagues succeeding with these churn prediction results and be like, I want access to this too. And then I don't know if I'd call this an architecture, but I just started sketching out what does it look like. You predict a churn propensity, you output the score, and also when you made that prediction, maybe you have some kind of triage process like I mentioned, that we don't pass all the results through here. We create a custom view for our sales reps. We also have a view to understand how successful is this going to be, both for the duration of the process and afterwards, right? To make sure that continuously this is delivering the value we're expecting to. And I'll shut up.
I think it's quite helpful what you painted in here, and also the point that you have raised in the tactical concerns, right? Because when we approaching such a project, we already know that was some investment. Now we need just to understand how we're moving forward and also what it means from cost. Sometimes, running and doing something does not necessarily mean that we're doing it better now, or having data sometimes is better than not having the data. Looking quite interesting. I really like the overview of it, and I think you even managed to be more organized than I was in my 15 minutes attempt to solve it. I took a little bit of a different approach here. So I started first with somehow the architecture flow to try to imagine, okay, I have such a project. How do I actually approach it? What am I doing here? What are the steps that needs to happen? And I started with basically, okay, we're generating now a model on a daily basis. This is the first 30 days. This is something we know it's possible to do because we have the Jupyter notebooks. The data is running. Apparently there is the information. This is from all the information that Maya gave us. And we are able to look at it and start using it. The idea behind it is to actually take the Jupyter notebooks. Data scientists can still produce a CSV file or a CSV export on a daily basis and transfer it to some human for validation. Somebody is actually checking the data, making sure that it's correct. My line of thinking was here that if we going directly from 0 to 100, so immediately deploying it into Salesforce without having steps of testing and timeframes, we're risking actually that we're going to run into the model of we spend now a lot of money creating the integration, API, maybe even, Salesforce charging extra for pushing this data into the systems and to integrate it. So we need to first validate it. We need to make sure it's correct. Acting upon these results, meaning somebody see the result. Okay, let's act on it. Let's figure out now what we are doing here. And basically validating the models. At the end of the day, what we're doing is validating the results, validating our playing books or the scenarios. So if we see something happen, how do we act to it? What do we need to do? See that we're actually aware of all of the cases that are going to pop up. and how to deal with it. And also at the same time, making some kind of a decision to keep or kill. So is it making sense to work with this churn system or not? I saw some models in the past that in the first 30 days, people realize that actually it's not supporting them, but on the contrary, it's creating much more mess and much overhead. So this is why I was like putting it in the first 30 days, we need to make a decision. Are we actually keeping it or deciding not to continue with it? And after we working with it, validating it, the scenarios, validating the model itself, we started to implementing it. But in here, what we're talking about is implementing, first of all, the feedback, the learnings, making sure it's being reflected correctly inside the churn model and the way that we're working with it. Then act again upon this result. So from day 30, starting acting on the new model, the evolved one, because I believe that data scientists will need a little bit longer for that, and then implement an API to push it into Salesforce, then feedback loops again, value generated on day 60 to understand what is actually the revenue that we have created. Did we create any extra value? Cost validation, so how much it's actually costing us to produce it, and then decision keep. This is ROI in clear and easy. When it's coming to the brainstorming area, I was a little bit less organized here. I think that I had an assumption that I placed here that model runs daily. It's not running more than that. I don't think there is actually even a value for a daily one, maybe even a weekly, but still, let's do it a daily one. Here we have fresh data on a daily basis. And I had few concerns here that basically related to forcing the use of Salesforce as the main consumption system. Is it the right way to go or not? Ownership. We know that data science teams are not strong in maintaining full pipelines. So we need to figure out also how we're doing this one. And the validation and acting upon KPIs. So how do we actually do it? Other than that, we have moving the creation into an AWS environment. So move it into an automatic environment, embed the dashboard with the results, alert by Slack email at the beginning, then validation of the data, implementation via API to Salesforce. And this is basically like to take it into steps rather than immediately doing it. And I had two quick wins is the CSV to be sent daily, and then the data team operates with the sales team. So they're sitting together and they're working next to each other. So it's better communication. One of the good examples I saw once was a daily that both teams had, the data team and the marketing, for example, where the data teams representing basically the results or the findings, and then the marketing could ask questions, keep probing or acting upon it. So this is another quick win that can happen, and I don't think it's going to cost much for any of the sites. That's it from my side of the solution.
Nice. I really like the go, no go decision parts you've got in the architecture, like one after 30 days, one after 60 days. It's really important. And also the cost validation bit. Two thoughts I had about kind of how you've laid out the timeline. One is that we might have to do the green and blue parts in parallel, as in like we may need to start working towards the Salesforce integration on the assumption we're going to decide to go ahead. If not doing so is going to compromise our timeline. Like anytime I hear Salesforce integration, I just assume it's going to take 5 more weeks longer than expected. And if I look at Maya's constraints, of course, wasting money is not a good thing, but she's also not said that, we're under a super tight budget. It's the time frame that is the critical thing. So if we're going to waste some money building an integration that we'll then have to kill, I'd rather do that than miss our deadline, especially since it sounds like already the data science team is kind of in trouble for not having delivered value already. And then I guess more question, and it's probably a question we'd have to ask whoever built the model as well. In your green part, where you say, you want to have human validation, do you think that's on top of whatever validation happened to first build the model?
So this is a project we took, for example, when I worked at Zalando when we built the marketing. And what we did was we gave the campaign managers the data to validate if it's making sense to them at all. Because sometimes the domain experts know best if the data looks good or not, and can also direct you. It's like, why do I have spending of 5,000 on this campaign, but actually I spend only 500 or whatever? And this is an extra part. It's behind just the quality check. It's more a domain expertise, looking at the data, validating it, making sure that the data is properly in place and looks clean and correct.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I guess what this has made me realize is I had made the assumption that this has happened already because the model was built. But, at the very least, we need to check with Maya and whoever built the model of like, hey, is it 87% accurate and signed off by domain experts? Or was it just a data science problem that you guys built in a lab and haven't yet done that kind of sense checking with the domain experts?
Yeah. We have a lot of open questions, I think, that Maya can help us solve, or we made an assumption. So for my assumption was I never trust the data until I have somebody, a domain expert, that signs on it. And I think this is why I added in here.
Same here.
Scars of old implementation that went wrong. So this, I think, something that was important for me to place in here. Should we go to the 3 insights, 3 action items for the next 90 days based on our brainstorming now? Are we feeling
I guess
with it? What we can do is let's take 2 minutes again off camera. We are back, Nick. Would you like to present your insights and actions?
Yeah, I had 3 reflections as we kind of took some time to write these out. The first is back when we had the other silent time before we started the brainstorm in architecture. I almost got to the end of those 15 minutes, and then I was like, shit, I forgot about success metrics, and I added that posted around how are we going to define success, and if we're going to have a dashboard to measure the success of this churn prediction approach, how exactly will we measure it? So even though I spend so much of my time talking about the importance of doing that, I also kind of forgot about it because I was too busy thinking about the more implementation details. And then the second reflection I had was very similar, which is even from when we started reading Maya's initial notes, I jumped straight into solution mode, like without being able to help myself. So it's like a constant active resistance that you have to do mentally to make sure that you're taking a structured approach to first understand the problem, then think about the solutions. And once you've thought about the solutions, you might go back again and be like, oh, actually, I didn't realize, have we thought about who in the sales team is going to be looking at this data? Is it the managers? Is it the salespeople? And then the third one, I realized as I was writing this out, as I was writing the actions, which was neither of us thought about things like, hey, is IT going to be okay giving us access to the production environment and letting us build this kind of integration? At least in the very traditional enterprises I'm used to working with, that alone can be a multi-month process just to convince them that what you're trying to do is safe and it's okay and it's not going to introduce cybersecurity risks or break their production database, whatever else. So those are the 3 insights. And then in terms of actions, I cheated and added a 4th one. These are the 4 kind of initial things I'd want to do almost in parallel. The first is just meet with Maya, go through a lot of the questions that we had to make sure we've understood it right, but also talk about what I'm calling go-to-market. Like, how are we going to roll this out? Are we going to do it big bang, roll it out to everyone? Can we start with a smaller team of champions, get more feedback from them, so that if we've kind of messed up, it's the people that understand, and they'll be more generous with their feedback, instead of the people that we're already going to need to struggle to convince to use a new approach, and they'll use it as an excuse to block it. Then, secondly, I'd want to meet with the end users, understand how do they actually work as opposed to what does Maya think they do, but also run them through a mock-up. For example, like, hey, what if this was your view in Salesforce? We've put it as an Excel sheet. Would this be clear to help you understand what you should do? And potentially give them a little tip in the form of, by the way, here's the latest churn prediction results, so you know who to call right after this meeting. And then the other 2 things are what I mentioned earlier, like talk to the data science team to see if they're able to productionize the model or if we need to figure out how to plug that skill gap. But also to understand, hey, what happened during this project? Like how I asked you earlier, hey, don't you think the data science team did that domain expert validation? So what are the things they didn't do that we may need to add to it? Yeah, and then lastly, what is the process to integrate with Salesforce and probably also to get the okay from IT if that's going to be a hurdle? Because that might be something we need to act today, not wait until day 20 to get started.
You said IT and all I had in my mind is GDPR. We didn't address even GDPR. The data compliance, right? Can we actually deal with the user's data? Do we have the consent for it? And there are so many questions in here that I think that we completely abstracted. So we try to be more practical and we didn't take into consideration in the plan. Because now, when you said IT, I was like, it's not only IT, it's also now legal team because we're dealing here with clients' data. It is management that is aware that there is data that's being transferred somewhere. There is so many small parts here that will require a lot of signups. When I read Maya's post, my assumption was management is aware of it and they gave the blessing, which means also legal involved. But then I realized many times legal getting forgotten in this process. So maybe we should also add the legal team there. Let me start my 3 minutes. I didn't have further insights, although I wrote it afterwards when I was thinking about it and I didn't manage to edit in here. So first thing is about the playbook. I was thinking that it should be something very simple, like every team has a playbook, but this assumption should not be made. I think that especially now when we're talking about a new model that they didn't really test for a while or for a long time, maybe the playbook is not relevant. Whatever they have today and the way that they're acting is not functioning, so that we need to figure out if it's working. I think this is one of my main insights from here. And then the second insight that I have is regarding KPIs, because we need to measure all of this operation. While they mentioned 89% accuracy and it predicted a user that was shown 6 weeks in advance, what are the actual KPIs that we're measuring to say this is actually producing the value or not? And I think this is still something that for me is missing. And I realized it only when I was working on the architecture. This is why I had this process of, okay, let's validate the cost and let's validate the revenue as a part of it. And then the third part is that Maya's description talked about what was supposed to be a technical issue. I just want to move one data to another system. But actually, there is quite a lot of complexity. This is the point that I didn't quite relate it later. The complexity of it is always what I find many times is like the business thing is quite easy to move from point A to point B. But between A and B, there is so many small dots that needs to be filled up. And the question was like, are we actually aware of all of these small processes that needs to happen in the way? So this is like my third insight from our session today. Then from the action items, I think that the first action item that I could put on here on the list is export the data as soon as possible, allow people to use it, fail first, just figure out if it's working or not. And then the second part is track cost and revenue from the beginning. So you already can show the uplift or the incrementality of this model in compared to not having the model, because I think this is also a decision that needs to be made. It's behind just saying, okay, this is the amount of money it saved us, this is the amount of cost, but it's also to show over time if the team itself got improved in using the model, and this is why things are moving smoother, or it just was, okay, there is in 6 weeks, this user going to leave and nothing more than that. So there is no extra training or extra insights coming out of it. So this is basically my 2 actions. I didn't have a third one. I didn't think about one. And yeah, so this is from my perspective. And I'm going to ask you now a very important question. Do you think we arrived to a breakthrough here? Is it not sure, question mark? We didn't manage to get any breakthrough in the problem, or yes, we have some solution, we can go forward?
No, I feel pretty good about it. Like, we obviously don't have the full solution ready, but I would not have expected us to do that with, a couple of notes from Maya as our context. And we have a very clear set of things we need to clarify, either with Maya, with our stakeholders, with our users, with legal, like you said. That was a very good point. I'd forgotten about that. And for me, that's how I defined that, this was a productive session, right? We had our breakthrough.
So it's not a question mark, it's a yes from your side. So from my side, I think I'm turning towards yes, we had a breakthrough, but I still have some open questions. I think that, as I said, like from the model itself, the understanding of it, the usage of it. I think we have a good action plan for the next 90 days, that's definitely. But I still think that we should add the legal, we should add the IT, as you mentioned before, also the data science team, to talk to them and understand if they're even realizing it or not. So I'm tending to say towards the yes, but not fully yes, we have a breakthrough, because we still have quite a lot of open questions in here.
Yeah, I guess I was scoring how well we did in this session. It's not, because obviously we are not ready to, start productionizing the model tomorrow. In that sense, it's a thumbs down, not even a question mark.
Cool. And then if we need to take 3 key insights, what would they be from our insights here that we have right now? I would love to put the IT ticket as a key insight that we need to take forward, if you allow me.
I'd say for me, the slightly more high level version of this is to say we should always have our standard checklist and run it through. Do we have, are we clear on IT, on privacy, on legal? Do we have access to data? Because that's how you end up forgetting. Oh yeah, we forgot about legal. So yeah, like I don't love checklists because they try to simplify what is inherently not a fully linear process too much. But it's good to have some checklist to run things through. Other favorite insights? I think like we both kind of wrote it in one way or another. But you had it as an insight, the importance of tracking KPIs, right? Like what is the definition of success? Like that's something we need to lead with Maya to be like, hey, is this going to be successful if we can prevent, I don't know, losing one more big client by the end of the year? Is it about hitting a revenue target? What does it look like?
Yeah, I agree. Adding it in here. Any third one? We don't need to do a third one. It's also okay to end up with two and say, this is the best insights you can take right now.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
And when we're talking about actions?
Yeah, I guess I've blended actions and follow-up topics because I've turned my follow-up topics into have a session with Maya, have a session with the users.
I would take the run 30 minutes mini workshop with Maya. I think it's making sense as a key action. It needs to happen. I will have to put here also export data as soon as possible because I think it's important.
Yeah. Like imagine we schedule the session with the users for 2 weeks from now. And in the meantime, we have information that there's this massive client at a high risk of churn. And by the time we meet with them, they could have started acting on it and then they lose it just because we're like, oh, let's not send them the Excel yet.
And I think that to the point that I mentioned before about Maya and the integration, I would take as an action point also to understand the process for integration, because I think it's also an important thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to make a comment on why I wouldn't kind of prioritize very highly the cost tracking part. I'm just assuming, based on all the the churn models that I've seen built, that the operating cost is not that high. That it like the just running the model every day or every week, it's going to be peanuts. The expensive thing is more that they spend like paid the data science team for a month or 3 months or however long to build it. But it should happen just later on.
Yeah. I think we have key insights. We have key actions. We had a lot of brainstorming here and a lot of learnings and aha moments. Would you like to summarize the experience in 1 to 2 minutes that we have left?
It was just super fun. For me, it's a very familiar way of thinking through a problem, like mixing up silent time, collaborative time, throwing post-its around instead of having something super rigid. But, if you're listening to this or watching this and this way of using a digital whiteboard is unfamiliar, I just really try it out because for me, it's so much better. Can you imagine if we'd started building Gantt charts in Excel or whatever else, technical requirements gathering? We would still be finishing the list of questions, not even having come to the end. Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm enough to remember these Gantt tables on Excel, planning team capacity and rollout planning, and then figuring it out at some point that version 15 of the Excel sheet was not saved properly. And now we need to start from scratch everything. Oh, no, thank you. I prefer the board.
And back then, you'd have wished for Excel never crashing instead of emails answering themselves.
Yeah, definitely. Nick, it's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed this session and really thank you for joining. I hope you enjoyed it and we taking something out of it, and also the listeners. At the end of the day, any less famous words where people can find you? What are you planning in the next few weeks? If there is anything interesting you would like to share.
Yeah, so where you can find me, LinkedIn is the main place. I also have a Substack blog called Value from Data and AI. And in the next few weeks, I might also finally launch my YouTube channel. Stay tuned on that. And then the only other thing to say is I'm running another version of my course in October. That's not so much about this part of the problem, but more about quantifying what is the value of doing this kind of work. And if it's churn prediction, it's maybe simpler. For a lot of business intelligence and other types of analytics work, it's like we were talking about at the start, it's the question that even data executives struggle to say, yes, my data team added this much to the business this year. So I train people on how to do that. So if you're interested, check it out. Yeah, again, I had so much fun in this. If it's okay, maybe in a few months' time, if you're still running these, Lior, I'd love to come back and do another one.
Sure. We'd love to have you again. I will add all the links. If you can send it, we're going to add it also to this podcast episode so people can click on things as well, not only listen to us. And I will wish everybody have a great problem space, solution space, boards, let's say that, that you can enjoy them as well. See you soon then. Thank you very much for your time, Nick.
See ya. Thanks for listening,
Bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.
This was another episode of Data Breakthroughs. I hope you enjoyed as I did during the session and listening to it. Thank you for joining and tuning in, and I will see you in the next episode. Until then, if you have a problem and you would like it to be featured, feel free to edit in the form below in the comments section. Also, if you would like to join as a guest, I'm always enjoying meeting new people. Feel free to submit the form. If there is a fit, we're going to reach out and we're going to coordinate the next recording. I will see you in the next episode.